Colorado's prosecutors say there's nowhere to put all the kids accused of violent crimes.
This is bad public policy, it is bad for community safety, and it is literally making this community less safe.
The state blindsides families and legislators with cutbacks in services for kids with developmental delays. Service cuts start Monday. This hidden graveyard of unwanted Teslas speaks to the company's real issues in a state that used to love those cars. A walk up the old Stapelton Airport tower, 30 years after the last flight there.
People have an emotional attachment to an airport, whether they realize it or not.
Please make sure your seat backs and tray tables are in the full upright position. It's time for Next. Colorado's 23 district attorneys, Republicans and Democrats, don't always agree. Yet everyone says Colorado needs to allow more kids to be locked up while awaiting trial for serious crimes. Our Evan Krugel starts us off tonight with that.
At Prairie Vista Youth Services in Brighton, 18 beds are set aside for kids accused of serious crimes. And vacancy here is hard to come by.
We are hovering around our 18 beds nearly non-stop.
17th Judicial District Attorney Brian Mason says Colorado law limits the number of kids that can be kept in juvenile detention. Right now, are there kids who have committed violent crimes who are not in custody because of this?
There are. According to the Colorado Department of Human Services, there are 31 juveniles who have been charged with first-degree murder, attempted murder, or manslaughter, who are out of custody.
Mason is now backing bipartisan legislation that would raise the current cap of 215 beds to 254, with room to go up or down in future years based on projected use.
We need some relief from this arbitrary bed cap.
Do you plan on fighting this proposal?
Yes, we absolutely do.
Anaya Robinson and the ACLU of Colorado says it's a bad idea.
We don't believe detaining more kids is the right answer. We don't think it fixes the actual problem. It puts a Band-Aid on it for a period of time.
He believes money for more beds could be better spent on keeping kids out of trouble in the first place.
Pushing millions of dollars into a space to raise the bed cap instead of pushing that money into a space to get these kids out who should be getting out, we see as a fairly irresponsible use of state funds.
This is not a proposal that will solve the problem of juvenile violent crime.
Mason agrees more money needs to be spent on early intervention as well, but says without raising the cap, violent kids will continue to be out in the community while they wait for trials on serious offenses.
For me, it should always be a priority that we spend our money on keeping our communities safe. Always. And this is one of those issues that has to be addressed.
Now, that bill is set to be discussed for the first time in the Health and Human Services Committee. That's next Tuesday. Kyle, those caps used to be a lot higher until legislators voted to bring them down. It will be interesting to see what the appetite is like this time as legislators decide whether to bring them back up again.
How often are they actually bumping into the cap?
Yeah, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. In the last year and a half, there have been 13 days where the state exceeded that cap. Brian says when that happens, they have to either find beds in another county or potentially release some of these juveniles from custody to make room for incoming kids. It is a statewide issue. Of those 23 judicial districts, 22 have hit that cap. That's why all 23 of them support this right now.
It's pretty widespread. Evan Krugel, thank you. There is panic right now among some parents and service providers who work with babies and toddlers in our state with developmental delays. The state agency in charge of those services unexpectedly announced a budget issue that could mean cutbacks as early as Monday. Early Intervention Colorado uses a mix of state and federal funding to provide services like physical and occupational therapies, nutrition services, and speech therapy for children 3 and under. Care providers say it is critical work that's being done with more than 10,000 kids too young to access school-based special education and for families on Medicaid who can't afford private pay therapy. On Tuesday, Early Intervention Colorado alerted providers about quote-unquote emergency cost containment measures. They say it'll start next week. The state blamed increasing referrals to the program, the expiration of federal stimulus payments, and decreasing Medicaid enrollment. According to a memo from the department, the changes include limiting how many hours of care patients can get each month and restricting Medicaid patients from accessing specialists like nutritionists who don't bill directly to Medicaid. Care providers and parents say they have just been blindsided by these cuts, and they worry that kids are going to get set back by a disruption in highly specialized care.
The insurance company that we have now is Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they require a referral for everything. And then even then, the only service that he has currently that would be covered by insurance would be occupational therapy, and speech is really what we need the most.
They are knocking all children down to 4 sessions a month, absolute max, regardless of the level of complexities that they and their family are experiencing because of delays or diagnoses. And now they are saying you have to pick from this limited pool. It's not going to meet needs.
In a statement, the Colorado Department of Early Child Education said the department's going to work to connect families to Medicaid-enrolled providers or telehealth options. State legislators also appeared shocked by these cuts, especially since the issue was not raised at a briefing just a few days ago. Legislators are considering emergency funding to help keep services going through the end of the year. 2 of Denver's most popular strip clubs are getting dressed down for wage theft, misclassifying dancers as exempt from laws on hourly pay and forcing them to pay a house fee before getting on stage. The Denver Auditor's Office is ordering Diamond Cabaret and Rick's Cabaret to pay nearly $14 million in restitution and penalties to those dancers and other workers. The audit found that the clubs violated, quote, nearly every applicable provision of Denver's minimum wage and wage theft ordinances. An attorney for the clubs called it government overreach. We sent our Mark Salinger to the strip clubs to investigate. He hasn't come back. Some Republicans want President Trump to withhold federal funds from Colorado unless Democratic Governor Jared Polis agrees to pardon Tina Peters. The former Mesa County clerk is a sort of celebrity and martyr in election rigging conspiracy circles. She was convicted of felonies for breaching her county's voting systems in an unsuccessful search for voter fraud. Peters is a few months into serving a 9-year sentence. She has remained unapologetic and defiant about what she did. Peters cannot be pardoned by President Trump because she was convicted on state charges, not federal charges. So it is up to Governor Polis whether to release her early. Colorado Republicans have been appealing to the Trump administration to pressure Polis by withholding federal funding from Colorado until Peters is set free, or by launching federal investigations into key players in Peters' case. The Colorado Republican Party's Director of Special Initiatives, Darcy Schoening, who's running for state party chair right now, says along with pulling funding to put the squeeze on Polis, she says she's been in touch with the U.S. Attorney General's office about prosecuting the judge in Mesa County who sentenced Peters. Schoening told me that the judge should reflect on what he did, which she called corruption, when he's locked up in the state pen in Canyon City. Governor Polis has tried to find common ground with the Trump administration lately. And today, his spokesperson dodged when we asked if Polis was considering pardoning Tina Peters or if he would do it if Trump put the screws to him. Polis' spokesperson would only say that Peters has not yet applied for a pardon. So there's a time when driving a Tesla was seen as primarily a statement about protecting the environment, if it was a statement at all. Now, some see driving a Tesla as a political statement, as Tesla's Elon Musk slashes the federal government at President Trump's direction. That, plus more competition, means trouble for Tesla in Colorado. Spencer Soysher looks at the impact.
A fence with green tarp around it blocks this dirt lot next to the Northfield Mall. Get a little higher, though, and you can see what's inside. Teslas and Teslas. And more Teslas, more than 230 of them, parked in a makeshift graveyard of unsold, non-driven dreams.
I like a nice-looking car, and I like blue.
Janie Rosenbaum used to have a Tesla.
I love the car.
But Janie put her money where her mouth is.
I don't like Elon Musk.
When her lease ended last year, she had one goal in mind, another electric vehicle. Just one not attached to the guy who's dismantling the federal government.
And he doesn't care about people. He has no empathy whatsoever. So he can be the richest man in the world, but I'm not going to help contribute to that.
Is Janie's reason an outlier? There's no measurement showing people getting rid of their car because they hate the guy who co-founded the company.
And I for sure wanted to stay with electric, but I was not going to get another Tesla.
While EVs are selling faster in Colorado, up 20% from the previous year, Teslas are not,
as more and more cars come to market through the traditional manufacturers, Tesla's market share is declining rapidly.
Matthew Groves is the president of the Colorado Automobile Dealers Association. They use data from Experian Automotive to track these trends.
They were first to market, right?
He says Tesla's dominated the EV market in the state for years because they were first. In Q4, the rate of new Nissan electric registrations in Colorado grew by 580%. Kia, 402. Hyundai, 245. And Tesla, -5.
Brands like Audi and Volkswagen and Jaguar, Mercedes, they took a little to come to market. Now that they are in market, we're finding their rise is almost meteoric as Tesla falls off.
Why is it happening? No certain answer, just rows and rows of evidence that Coloradans don't love Teslas like they used to.
But I'm not buying another Tesla, ever.
We reached out to Tesla and individual Tesla shops near that Northfield lot to figure out if it is excess inventory. No answer from either on that. We also asked the company who owns the lot about the cars. The response, that story is a nothing burger.
There's absolutely nothing that will make something a story faster than somebody telling a journalist that is not a story. You see this stuff on the streets, Spencer, where people will put signs in the windows of their Tesla telling people, I don't like Elon Musk, please don't key my car, as if keying somebody's car is an acceptable thing to do because you don't like a political figure. But that kind of stuff is real. You see the bumper stickers too. They're like, I bought this before such and such Elon. You know, it's a thing now.
Totally, absolutely. And people are doing that, and clearly people, at least some people, are now getting rid of the cars. It's a political statement in a sense. They don't want to drive a car that represents the guy that they don't like.
Yeah. And then there's the Cybertrucks. We don't have time
Those
to
are
get
just
into the
ugly.
Cybertrucks. Yeah, I've got other questions and concerns about what are going on in those men's lives. But anyway, Spencer Soysher, thank you. Another round of layoffs hit federal employees today, this time targeting weather and climate scientists. As Colorado's members of Congress say, even they don't know how many Coloradans have been fired.
You use a scalpel, you don't come in the way that he is with a bulldozer.
And we remember an era in Colorado aviation history that ended 30 years ago today with one final flight. That's next. Hundreds of federal employees who do weather forecasting and oversee climate research lost their jobs today. The latest federal layoffs by the Trump administration are hitting two agencies that have pretty prominent roles in Colorado. The Associated Press says the cuts impact probationary employees, so that's new and promoted folks, at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, and the National Weather Service. Scientists at NOAA provide weather watches and warnings. They do climate research, and they operate America's weather satellites. It's not immediately clear how many employees have been laid off or whether the cuts will impact the employees at the National Weather Service offices in Boulder, Pueblo, and Grand Junction. NOAA spokesperson wouldn't talk about it. It's not clear at this point how many of the 40,000 Coloradans who work for the federal government have been fired by billionaire Elon Musk and the Trump administration. Colorado's members of Congress don't even know. Republican Rep. Jeff Hurd told Colorado Public Radio he does not know how many federal employees in his district have been fired. And Democrat Brittany Pedersen, who represents the west side of the metro area, told me the same thing.
I don't know the actual number of the people who have currently been let go, but we've been reaching out throughout the district, asking people to tell their stories so that we can capture that, share that, talk about, what their role was, how important it was, what's actually happening on the ground.
President Trump ran on a pledge to drastically reduce the size of the federal government, and he won the popular vote and he won the Electoral College. How certain are you that he's not giving Americans exactly what they're looking for in a rapid downsizing of the federal government?
Hey, I think that we should look at this when you're cutting budgets, when you're looking at taking away, maybe some unnecessary spending. You use a scalpel, you don't come in, the way that he is with a bulldozer.
In my full conversation with Democratic Representative Brittany Pedersen, we also discussed the next steps in her bipartisan push to allow new parents like her to vote in Congress remotely. This week, she got national attention when she flew cross-country carrying her 4-week-old so that she could vote against the Republican budget blueprint. My full unedited interview with Pedersen is with all the others on the Next YouTube channel, and we also put it into the Next podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts.
We will say goodbye to February with above average temperatures and lots of sunshine. A beautiful evening after a day with highs in the mid to upper 60s along the Front Range, and not a lot of wind, which is wonderful news. Temperatures have cooled back to the mid 50s. Our high temperature today way above average. As a matter of fact, this hour we're 16 degrees warmer than we were this time yesterday. The winds will be picking up over some of the Front Range foothill areas tomorrow in advance of a weather system that's approaching Colorado, but will be pushed east by building high pressure. Low pressure coming in off the Pacific will bring some changes to Denver on Monday and Tuesday. Quiet, calm night, a nice warm day tomorrow. Weather headlines, this above average temperature trend will continue through the weekend. But the weekend, the first full weekend of March, is when we see changes. Mountain snow on Sunday and then rain changing to snow in Denver Monday night into Tuesday.
And if it weren't for this tower being here, you might not know that this airport ever existed. So I'm here to keep that history alive.
30 years after the final flight out, a bird's eye view of history from above what used to be Stapleton. The last flight out of the airport in Denver left 30 years ago today, end of the Stapleton Airport era. Today we return to the control tower, which still stands as part of a brewery in the renamed Central Park neighborhood.
And if it weren't for this tower being here, you might not know that this airport ever existed. So I'm here to keep that history alive.
My name is Sean Henson. Yeah, I'm a tour guide. I was the kid growing up who was obsessed with airplanes.
So much history and so much happened here that is highlighted in the walls of the stairwell all the way up to the top of the tower.
That's the Beatles as they were coming off their plane to do their concert at Red Rocks. The Pope and Bill Clinton were both here at Stapleton at the same time. But a lot of cool pictures here.
There's so much history here. One of my favorites is that the first woman ever hired as a captain, her name was Emily Warner. She was hired by Frontier Airlines back here at Stapleton back in the 70s. People have an emotional attachment to an airport, whether they realize it or not. And this was that for many people for generations here in this city.
So this is the very last flight to depart from Stapleton ever. And it was 30 years ago today. Continental Flight 34 to London Gatwick.
Okay, clear to go, Continental 34 Heavy. We will miss this place, a lot of memories.
We do have a recording of the very last air traffic control transmission that was ever sent from this tower as the last flight departed and the airport closed forever 30 years ago today.
Tower Op 7. Op 7, Tower. Well, this Grand Ole Airport is now officially closed. You can shut the runway lights off and we'll issue the notice.
It's just really cool to see how much this meant to a lot of people and still does to this day.
That is really cool hearing that last call. Maryland's got feedback. I'll have it for you next. Your feedback tonight about upholstery. A text. Kyle, my wife and I were trying to find a nice fabric and pattern for a throw pillow. Your jacket solved the problem. Matt, I religiously watch your show. You fairly report the issues. Matt continues, watching tonight's show let us know what happened to my grandma's sofa after we donated it. John writes in to say that he likes the jacket. It's his favorite. He says, I don't believe I've seen that one before. What date is on the note in the pocket? Oh, he knows my system. All right, let's check. Last wore this jacket on the air May 13th of 2024. See you next time.